mythology, modern mythology, modern mythology.
What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of Modern
Mythology. Jimmy Jam.
We agreed that you'd stop doing that. The
Sorry.
Jimmy Jam stuff.
Sorry.
Like what? How do I look my kids? How do I look my son in the face and say, "Sorry, son, I gotta go be on a podcast where my friend is saying Jimmy Jam, Jimmy Jam"?
Why don't you tell your
Son
son about Jimmy Jam and Terry Lewis, two of the finest pop producers of the 1980s?
I thought you were gonna make up a fake product. I thought you were gonna say, "Then you need to try this Jimmy Jam teriyaki jerky."
Jimmy Jam teriyaki jerky, straight from the Jimmy Jammerness.
The Jimmy Jammerverse.
The Jimmy Jammer Gardens in Lower
Go see the Oscar-nominated film Into the Jimmy Jam verse.
into the Jimmy Jam verse.
Yeah. So we're talking about
Jimmy Jam verse.
Will you
Endgame.
Hey, Jimmy. Why don't you jam it?
Hey,
We're talking about the Red Lanterns today
If you
on
made it
Modern
this far.
Mythology. Have you good job? Only a minute or so. We're not even 2 minutes into the pod.
it's too late
To fall in love.
to turn back now.
So we're going to be covering the Red Lanterns and mostly the character Atrocitus, because the character Atrocitus is intrinsically tied to the Red Lanterns. He's the first. He creates the Red Lanterns, pretty much. Well, yeah, he does. So he's an interesting character. So he gets introduced.
He's a character, all right.
Not in this book. He shows up in the issue before it, because this is the current book that I'm holding is Green Lantern: Rage of the Red Lanterns. So this is Green Lanterns issue 26 to 28, 36 to 38, and then Final Crisis: Rage of the Red Lanterns. In later printings, they changed the name of it. It's no longer called Final Crisis: Rage of the Red Lanterns. But anyway, in this book, it kind of continues. Especially in this book, because it's a Green Lantern book, you really feel the setup for what becomes of the Blackest Night, which is a storyline that I would love to cover on the show one day. But
So
it kind of sets up that there's more than just a green. Okay, yes, this is, by the way, Atrocitus and the Red Lanterns. This all happens post Sinestro Corps War. So at this point, Sinestro has already created his core, and they've ripped through the galaxy, and the Guardians changed their law, where now Green Lanterns can kill Sinestro Corps members. They couldn't before, now they can. In this book, it expands, where they're like, now you can kill anybody. Lethal force is allowed. And then they create the Alpha Lanterns, which are a blend of Manhunter technology with their organic life. So, like, part Lantern, part Manhunter, and it's weird, and yeah. There's a whole bunch of shit, and that's a whole different stuff,
well,
you know what I mean?
We talked about it, you and I, off the air, and it's kind of interesting to you and I that it took how long for a guy like Jeff Johns to come up and go, hey, why can't there be more than one green? Why can't there be more than one colored lantern?
So the Red Lanterns and the Green Lanterns and the Sinestro Corps are a part of the emotional electromagnetic spectrum, and it's an energy field that is fueled by the emotions of all sentient beings, and one of the Hold on.
That's me. That was me. Sorry.
One of the 7 forces of the universe, and the spectrum of light is the power source of all the Lantern Corps. So yeah, they're all controlled by emotion, and this gets told in Blackest Night, but this is this whole stuff with Atrocitus at the beginning is in that time. So of the colors, we're talking about the Red Lanterns. They represent rage. Orange represent greed. Yellow is fear. That's what Sinestro is. Green is will. We know that. We also get introduced to the Blue Lanterns in this book, which is hope. Indigo is compassion. Violet is love, which are the star sapphires. And then black is death, and white is life. So, And then there's an invisible spectrum and then all that stuff. But
invisible spectrum? What the fuck?
There's a whole bunch of other shit.
What
the
fuck?
I only bring that up because this is the first time we see a lantern outside of Sinestro. Because all that stuff with the Sinestro Corps War, that was the first time we'd ever, that was finally Sinestro creating a Yellow Lantern Corps, essentially. And that was the first time we'd ever heard of that. So at this point, now we're getting introduced to something outside of Sinestro that's now going to be opposing Green Lantern. And it's a whole new Lantern Corps that has their own motivations and their own things. And it's weird because you and I were talking, and I feel like Atrocitus to me reminds... It makes me think that like a lot of this is like DC's Venom character, where Atrocitus is introduced in this Green Lantern book as a villain, but yet he gets his own team and a series in the New 52 that ran for 40 issues and had like 2 different creative teams. So he eventually kind of develops into this anti-hero. And I think a lot of it is because his backstory is so interesting. So Atrocitus is this like, we don't even necessarily know his race. It is funny because as good as Jeff Johns...
Is he not the last of his race?
He is the last of his race.
That's what I thought.
As good of a writer...
I know a little bit about the Red Lanterns and whatnot because that Marvel or the DC mobile game, which is a lot like the Marvel one I play, they introduced a lot of the different lanterns, like Larfleeze, the Orange Lantern, Atrocitus, the Red Lantern, things like that. Mm-hmm. So I do kind of, and they give a short bio about the characters, each character.
Yeah, so...
Pretty interesting stuff.
So the Green Lanterns are in a weird place because now the Guardians are moving to like, we're going to kill people, and we're putting Sinestro, giving him the death penalty. And they're taking him to his home planet of Karugar to be executed there. While that's happening, we get the birth of the Red Lanterns. And I texted you when I was done reading this because of these collections I have, Peter Milligan is the one who takes over the series, like the first 20 issues of the Red Lantern series.
Yeah.
But Jeff Johns is the one who introduces the Red Lanterns and introduces Atrocitus. And it's like he was on a different level when he's writing this shit. Like the first thing you see of this intro of his character in this Green Lantern book, because you see him in the previous issue where he fights and kills this guy, and then you see a Red Lantern, and he says, "I will get the greatest I will find the greatest Green Lantern. I will have my revenge on Sinestro." So he's got his own plots, but the first panel is a wide shot, and he's just in nothingness. It's red. There's ba-bump, ba-bum, ba-bum. And they say it's like a war drum, and it just keeps going. It's just ba-bum, 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 each fucking panel. And like it just gets crazier because you see the red ring, and it builds up, and it's like these shots, like, oh my God, the art of these books. Mm. So like, one example is there's a page where the paneling is literally the Red Lantern logo of him creating the ring. Yeah. So how Atrocitus creates the Red Lantern ring, the power ring, is his home planet is the planet of Riot, which, again, as good of a writer as Jeff Johns can be, he's very on the nose. He's in the sector, he looks like a demon, right? He's in the sector 666. On the planet Riot, but it's spelled
R-Y-U-T-T.
Yes, but yes, he is a part of what is the Manhunter massacres, where before the Green Lanterns, the Guardians created the Manhunters.
Yep, I know all about that.
Which were these androids that were so emotionless and sent out to be.
There was a huge crossover
essentially
in the 80s about that.
Essentially, the police officers, but they get corrupted and they kill all sentient life. Yeah, because they think that's what the problem is or whatever. Yeah. So
it's kind of a cool backstory, a little about
the biggest and what Jeff Johns does with this continuity is saying the biggest tragedy is when they completely eradicated a planet, which was Riot and Sector 666. Atrocitus is the lone survivor.
Yep.
He gets picked up by these celestial ancient beings called the Inversions. One is named Cull and one is named like Roxame or something. Like, it's a weird spelling name. these three exist, and they have their own intentions, and they're kind of like the evil version of what the Guardians would be. They're like these old celestial beings. Atrocitus hooks up with the female. He begins to use her to learn her blood magic that she does. Because again, they have like this ancient magic. Because again, it's the fucking Guardians and Oa, and we're gonna just accept the fact that that's just
Is she a lot like what's her name on Gen V?
Excuse me. She doesn't play a big factor in it, other than that and that is all added in by Peter Milligan. Jeff Johns didn't write that. Jeff Johns just wrote that he killed Cull, which is the one that we find out in Jeff Johns' run is the one responsible. They blame him and Atrocitus for the murder of Abin Sur.
Oh.
So they have been crucified on the planet Yasmalt for like thousands of years.
Huh.
And he finally breaks free, kills Cull, and uses the blood of the inversion and his own rage, and he creates the red power core, battery core, and then that's how he creates the Red Lanterns. And then from that, the Lanterns will shoot out like they do with the Green Lanterns, and how they do it is you have great rage in your heart instead of you have great will in your heart or whatever. But I want to pull up because it's what I love about Jeff Johns with this whole emotional spectrum with the rings. Each ring has to have a fucking oath, which makes me laugh. But it's like, I love it because it's so cheesy, but amazing. So again, the whole time we get captions of Atrocitus in this book, it's just ba-boom, ba-boom, ba-bum, 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 and then you realize, it's a heartbeat. Because what makes the Red Lanterns unique from the Green Lanterns or the Sinestro Corps is when you become a Red Lantern, it takes away your heart and replaces it with rage. And so you puke blood, but that blood becomes napalm and burns enemies and burns people. And that's what the rage of the Red Lanterns is you like, and they have like these weird like vampire kind of powers where like they can bite you and suck your blood a little bit and they can get readings on you. At least Atrocitus can, because he does blood magic. It's kind of weird.
Blood sugar baby.
But anyway,
she has it. Sex magic.
Here's the oath and this is what I love about it, because again, the paneling is the logo, and it's just like this metal-looking fucking
metal.
But it's also what I found interesting with these Lantern books, with this one, with the Johns books and the Red Lanterns books, is their paneling is black instead of white. I thought it was interesting. So, with blood and rage of crimson red ripped from a corpse so freshly dead, together with our hellish flesh, we'll burn you all. We'll burn you all with our hellish hate. Son of a bitch, I fucked it up. Let's start over. With blood and rage of crimson red ripped from a corpse so freshly dead, together with our hellish hate, we'll burn you all. That is your fate. And he finally wears his full suit with the red and the black, and I love his design. I really like Atrocitus' look throughout the years. Like, he gets kind of like, depending on who draws him, his teeth change, kind of like Venom, where like some guy will make it sharper looking and have more or whatever.
I'd say more like Venom's tongue. Depending on the artist, how crazy
long
his
it
tongue
is or how big his mouth is. Yeah, pretty much. It's kind of the same with Atrocitus.
A little bit there. So he shows up and stops the Sinestro going to Kurugar. He interrupts it and takes Sinestro because he wants Sinestro. Because he blames Sinestro and Hal Jordan. Well, just Sinestro, not Hal Jordan, but he blames Sinestro for being there. He's like, I didn't fucking kill Abin Sur. Cole did, and I got blamed for it as well, and blah, blah, blah. And then they're fighting. While that's happening, Hal Jordan is learning about the Blue Lanterns, and that's just setting up the Blackest Night stuff. So then the Sinestro Corps, the remaining members, they show up on Yasmal to fight the Red Lanterns so they can break out Sinestro. And this is when
There's a character named Laura in this that Hal is friends with, that she's one of the Lost Lanterns. It's a whole thing. Again, I don't have time to go into that, but she becomes
what the fuck, man?
She's pissed because she gets put in jail because she killed she killed Amundsen, the son of Abensur, who was a Yellow Lantern who was like, I give up, but she killed him anyway.
Oh.
So she becomes a Red Lantern, and then she dies because then we find out that she can't talk and act normal at all. She's just like a raged beast, like an animal.
Rage beast!
So we find out, unlike the other Lantern Corps, Red Lanterns, when you become a Red Lantern, it removes your heart, gives you rage, and you can't control yourself. You lose sentience. You just become like an animal.
Huh.
And only Atrocitus has sentience. So he just leads an army of these crazed, angry people. And Lara gets killed by Sinestro after he gets freed, and Hal loses his shit. And that's when Lara, who died, her ring pops off and goes and lands on Hal, and for a brief period, he becomes a Red Lantern. And that gets fucking Atrocitus pumped up because he's like, yeah, let's go, Hal, let's fucking go. And because he is a Green Lantern and a Red Lantern at the same time, he's making constructs of his rage, and it's all over the place and crazy. And then the Blue Lanterns help Hal, and he beats
Blue Lanterns.
He helps Hal, and Hal beats Atrocitus and the Red Lanterns. And then they show up again briefly to help with the Blackest Night stuff. And then the New 52, they get their first solo series, The Red Lanterns, written by Peter Milligan, drawn by Ed Benes and Rob Hunter.
Benes. I like Milligan a lot. He wrote the X-Force X-Statics stuff with Mike Allred.
Miguel Sepulveda.
Sepulveda.
He does the next 2 volumes with Milligan, and these are really good as well. All the art on these books are just fantastic.
You're fantastic.
No. So
you're fantastic. Say it with me.
You're fantastic. So this whole volume is just kind of setting up who the Red Lanterns are going to be in this series, and just like more of a.
So answer me this. So he's the only one with sentience. Like, so the other members of his team are just constantly trying to kill him.
No, they're enraged. Well, they're just enraged, but he keeps them in check. He just like. Atrocitus again is kind of a bad guy because he is there are times he's violent with Bleeze a few times, and he's trying to get her to be his lieutenant, where I'm like, do we need to be that violent with her? And I want to talk about these characters because on one hand I understand what Milligan is doing with this, of like, these are not Green Lanterns, they're rage driven people. What things have to happen to someone that they get to the level of rage that these magic space rings find them? You know what I mean? Yeah. And so some of this backstories and some of these characters are really cool and unique, and then there's some of it, like, I get what they're trying to do, but it's still kind of fucked. So a lot of this so we also find out about the sentience thing, right? Well, Atrocitus is kind of in a weird place because his whole point of helping the Green Lanterns in Blackest Night was so he could kill Krona, the Guardian responsible for the Manhunters that killed everything. Yeah. He's dead. And he's talking to the corpse a lot of this Guardian because he's trying to find direction. And he's like, all right, I'll be rage and justice throughout the galaxy, but we're going to do that. But if we're going to do it, I'm going to need at least one other person that's smart. Because all I got is my cat Dexcar, which is a little kitty over here. All I got is him right now, so I'm gonna recruit someone, and he recruits Bleeze, who is such a important part of the story. We have her looking with her big boobs and her like classic comic book sexiness on display. It serves a purpose in the story, and this is why I run into issues. Because Bleeze herself as a character, I think, is very interesting and is a really cool dynamic with her and Atrocitus. But her backstory is so tragic and, like, I don't know. So her backstory is she was this woman that was always been beautiful and designed essentially to be married off to this kingdom, right? And she was a voluntary virgin. And the other men, because they were not worthy of her, she wanted a worthy suitor. And they were jealous of her, so they told these Sinestro Corps members about it. And they had sexually assaulted her. She fought them off. There was a whole fight. They don't show it in this book, but they talk about it. And so she gets sexually assaulted, and then from her rage of that, she becomes a Red Lantern. And it's like, I understand we have to take a character to a certain depth to be driven by nothing but rage.
Right.
But did we have to go to that level?
Yeah.
And she references it in another part of this series, where the Star Sapphires are trying to recruit her because there's a disease that's killing Red Lanterns, and she blames the Star Sapphires, and they say, you should choose love, and we're doing this out of love. And she goes, doing it out of love is what Sinestro's men said when they raped me. And that was her like breaking free and saying like, I am rage. Because they did that to her, and she has these big wings, and they took her wings, tore off all the feathers, and now all of her wings, they're still there, but it's just bone. And the frustrating thing is Bleez is such an interesting character and such a cool character that it's frustrating that I feel like it's not fridging, but it sort of feels like fridging.
Yeah.
That we went to the level of her getting raped. I don't think that was necessary for a justification of her to be so angry.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I don't know. That one frustrates me. There's some other interesting ones, but essentially this series just sets up the new Lantern Corps essentially. But after he gives her sentience, they still have fighting, but we find out that, okay, how does he give her sentience? Well, in the second issue, he decides, I know how I'm going to do it. I'm going to throw her in the blood ocean. So the power core on Yasmal is fueled. So the Red Lanterns are fueled by blood and rage. Blood. Spill the blood of the innocent into the blood ocean. And so the blood ocean has these powers to it because of the blood magic that Atrocitus does. He throws Bleez into the blood ocean. And by doing that, she starts to remember, and she starts to get her sentience back because he needs her to think straight to be a part of it. So you see, like, for the first time, she comes out of this and sees everything of like where she is and what's happening and what the all that. And she, of course, has a fight and argument with him, but then you see her again. There's so many gratuitous shots of her where it's like it seems gratuitous, but again, it plays to that because even moments after, as they have they work together at times, but they can't trust each other because they're driven by so much rage. They're paranoid. Because even in this, when he recruits Bleez to be his right hand, he's like, oh, wait. They do listen to her, but I've remembered, oh, yeah, she's very attractive. And she's very smart. And she's already kind of questioning my leadership. So that leads to Bleez later in this book when a few other characters get sentience. She leads like a rebellion, and there's a whole thing to that. But that book wraps up with Bleez and Atrocitus and all the Red Lanterns coming together and defeating...
Peace and harmony. No?
No, no, exactly. That's not what happens. They're split up. So there's a disease at the end of this first book. Atrocitus gets attacked. We also meet the first, or not the first, but the new human human Red Lantern, Jack Moore. His grandpa gets mugged and beaten to death. His brother firebombs that guy's house. His brother gets arrested, and he in the struggle he's fighting with cops. Jack Moore lets go, and he lets go to rage. And when he does that, the ring flies in and says, "You have great rage in your heart," and it flies on.
Let's do this.
But this is what I think is interesting about these books. It makes me laugh because they're written by humans, right? And these Lantern books are all about like
they're written by humans.
Yeah, they're written by humans, and these Lantern books are about all these alien races and all these different things, but yet they can't help themselves and have to make the human character cool. Where this Jack Moore character, he is unique, where when he gets the Red Lantern power ring, he doesn't become, while he is fueled by rage, he is able to resist the power of the red ring. So while again, I don't think I made it clear, you die when you become a Red Lantern. Because if you're removed from the ring, you die because it's your heart.
Yeah.
And that's why when you see a lot of it, it was like ba-boom, ba-boom. There's heartbeat panels for like the rage building. So he is like resisting the rage a little bit, but I'm like, why is it the human is the only one that can resist? As much as we did so much to build up Bleeze as a cool character, and Scalix and all these other different Red Lanterns, that we have to make the human character be like, no, but I can resist the rage. I can keep it at bay. And it's like, well, we have to have a human character we can connect with, which I disagree. I liked Atrocitus and his alien friends more than I didn't need a human on the team.
We talked about this off the air. I mean, Hal Jordan is...
Oh, well, Jeff Johns especially. Hal Jordan was the greatest fucking human being ever.
Well, he's supposed to be the greatest Green Lantern ever, right? And, again, all the heroes and everybody on Earth knows him as Green Lantern. But, like, among the core, he's Hal Jordan. You know what I mean? Like, it's just kind of ridiculous when you start going down that path of like who's the greatest, Green Lantern or who and whatnot.
Yeah. Well, and it's just I was talking to you about this. The more I read these books in this series, the more I kind of fell in love with the Red Lanterns.
And Guy Gardner becomes a Red Lantern at one point.
Yes, in the later runs,
I knew about that.
Guy Gardner defeats Atrocitus and becomes the leader of the Red Lanterns.
Well, you've already said that at one point Hal Jordan gets both or whatever.
Yeah, well, the first time we see Atrocitus, Hal Jordan wields both for a minute. Well, and that's also when we get introduced to the Blue Lanterns, and the Blue Lanterns can augment their abilities. Like they charge up. If a Blue Lantern is in the presence of a Green Lantern, he'll charge their battery.
Nice.
Of the ring, and like there's a whole other mythology episode we could do about the what Johns and Milligan and the other guys did of like with the Green Lantern Corps and the Green Lantern itself and how all that connects with Blackest Night and shit, because it's crazy. Yeah. But what it feels like Venom, doesn't it? Like that idea of like, okay, let's still have this edge to these characters, because the Red Lanterns still kill people, and there's different instances of like you're seeing more of justified rage. But even then, as I'm reading it, I'm still like, that doesn't mean it's accepted. Because there's like a whole part where there's these kids playing in a war zone, and they're gunned down by these pilots because the pilots think they're enemies, and they see their sticks and they think they're weapons. And Atrocitus is like, bullshit. You're punished, and just like burns them with his napalm breath. And there's things like that where it's like justified rage. And like, I don't know, there could be argument, and that's what's so interesting about it being emotionally attached. Like, you and I have said, I can relate to Atrocitus and the Red Lantern. I've never been that angry, obviously, but I can relate to that level of rage. I can relate to that level of willpower with the Green Lanterns. You know what I mean? And like, I think reading these books, it has shown more and more what's so interesting. And I think Marvel and DC both, as crazy as it sounds, I love like Batman and Spider-Man and all those Superman and Captain America and all like that Earth-based stuff. But I love it when these books go cosmic with Marvel and DC, and they get weird and they get the deep like space lore of the fucking lanterns and shit like that.
Kirby when Stan Lee and Jack Kirby were still doing Thor and like Journey to Mystery, I think it was. They had like a lot of cosmic storylines with him, and I thought that was really, really. That's why I love those early Thor stories, because they're all about him being in space and meeting other alien races and the Black Galaxy saga and shit like that.
We'll talk about this off the air, but have you seen?
No, we're gonna talk about it on the air so everybody can see.
Did you see Al Ewing? First of all, I haven't had a chance to read his Thor run yet, but
I started reading the Immortal Thor.
Did you see the corporate Thor he did? issue. It was Roxxon Presents Thor. Oh, dude, I need to read it because I've heard it's really good.
Nice.
But yeah, so I really like the Red Lanterns. I would like to talk about it more. I didn't finish all the books because I read a good amount, but I got enough to understand because I myself.
Hell, I haven't read a G.I. Joe comic book in about 10 years.
Well, I myself.
I said 10 years.
When you and I were talking about like different things, and I said I should do the Red Lanterns. I was at the library and I just happened to see.
I was just at the end of my rope at the library.
I was just at the library and I happened to see, and for whatever reason, I had volume 1 of that book. I had never read that Red Lanterns book, but for whatever reason, I saw a bunch of those volumes.
I'm so proud of you.
At the local library. Support your local library.
I'm so proud of you.
I went to the library and found him, and I was like, let's look into this. Because I myself had known of Atrocitus because he's gained popularity in the DC lore. Because he's shown up in video games like you were talking about. He shows up in Injustice 2 and stuff like that. So I'd kind of known about him, but like you, I didn't know where the power core had come from. So this was my first time learning about it too.
He's even more like Venom than you think because back in the day when there was maybe a year or so, I think, in the comics or 2 between when Peter goes to the bell tower and it falls off him and supposedly dies and Venom first appears, right? But like within a year or 2 of him appearing in the comics, they and Carnage being like first introduced, they had that Super NES game Spider-Man Total Carnage or Maximum Carnage, and it had like these 2 characters that had literally just been introduced a year or 2 before in the comics. So Atrocitus is very much like that because I mean, when you start to transcend shit.
Well, I mean, the fact that they with the new that's an interesting thing.
By the way, that game was fucking awesome.
Well, it's like it just shows you how much pull that Jeff Johns had at that time at DC because he was coming off this run with Hal Jordan with the Secret Origin and Rebirth and Blackest Night, all that stuff. The Third Army shit was coming out after this, and these later issues of the Red Lantern books deal with it. But like, he had such pull because he was doing this Green Lantern book, but he was also doing Justice League at the time, and he was kind of the guy that was helping spearhead the New 52 because he was also doing the Green Lantern book still. And of all the changes that was happening to the New 52, the Lantern stuff mostly remained untouched.
Yeah.
Like you could, like I did, I got some extra lore with the Black Lantern or the Blackest Night stuff, but you could go from Rage of the Red Lanterns and then just read that New 52 series and be fine. And so that's another thing too. I think because Jeff Johns created him and put him a part of that Green Lantern, and it is again Spider-Man Venom. You bring in this character similar to your hero, almost the antithesis of him, willpower, rage, right? And then you have him come in and interact with the big villain at the time, make waves there, and then again always be tied to them because there's always that not the symbiote. It's not the symbiote, but it's the power core. It's the battery core. It's the ring, and it's interesting.
Pretty cool, man.
I love that what Johns did to just completely expand that, and it is truly incredible,
outrageous
that nobody else thought of it beforehand. Like
we
just
talked
nuts.
about this,
it's
like
nuts.
that nobody thought, and shit like that. Like, I've talked to you about the Krakoan era in X-Men and stuff, and it's like that makes so much sense to do that, and it truly is. You're like, how did it take somebody so long to come up with the idea that, oh hey, there's other colors than green.
Well,
I wonder if we could do like blue lanterns.
Well, we made it a big deal about willpower. What if we used other emotion and made that more of a, it's just fucking.
I can only imagine Jeff Johns like taking a shit one day.
Oh, another.
And he's just like, that's the last time I eat Domino's pizza.
But there you go. You make a character so big like Venom.
Just walking over that Domino's pizza joke.
But yeah,
just walking over.
Atrocitus is looked at as like a big villain now of Hal's because of that Venom appeal. Like he's always tied to Hal in the Green Lanterns because the Red Lanterns did work with the Green Lanterns. They have been allies, but they're mostly opposed because the Green Lanterns start to go back to arresting people. And also, can I just say,
no,
I've been playing DC Universe Online. You saw me playing a little bit of that. We were talking about it on the other podcast. But I just got to say, what the fuck? Why does Warner Brothers still do nothing with the Green Lantern franchise? Like, it's so... Because, like, I'm reading this shit.
They're doing the...
This shit is so...
Lanterns TV, isn't there?
Yeah, but who knows when that ever's going to actually come out. You know what I mean?
They're casting.
But like, you look at... And I've said this many times. With the Red Lanterns and all this emotional... With the power rings and stuff like that and the Green Lanterns. That's one of the most unique fucking heroes and universes and lores that you could have. You know how big you could make a fucking Blackest Night movie, like Spider-Verse level animated movie? Are you fucking kidding me? We're just sitting there with this. James Gunn, please.
Green Lantern is nowhere near.
But hey, we are getting
Spider-Man.
Hey, we are getting a Green Lantern in the Superman movie, though. We are getting Guy Gardner.
Well, we're getting a Green Lantern's show. Like, we've talked about it on...
and I hope it really is like the True Detective, like lethal... I said Lethal Lanterns because
Lethal Lanterns.
But yes, I would love the buddy cop Green Lantern show.
That would be cool. I think that's the best way to do it. Introduce it to a modern audience.
Because, and again, this also established it, what they do with the Red Lanterns and things with that. They also establish... They've already established it, but it's like, okay, Green Lantern are cops.
Yeah.
That's
what they're supposed to be.
The Blue Lanterns are like the kind of peace, love hippies because they're
the EMTs.
They're hope. And the Starfires are love, you know. But yeah, you have you have Rage, where it's like they are pretty on the nose with it of like, oh, it's he came from Sector 666 and he kind of looks like a demon. Oh, and by the way, Yasmal is just got an ocean of blood and this big power core. But it's also like, it's cheesy and silly, but that's the kind of shit that I love, and that's why we're doing modern mythology, because it adds so much mythos to Atrocitus, and it's like, it won me over of like, I actually care about this guy. I like Bleeze. I like this team, and he does, like, what's funny is Jack Moore his name changes to Rancor when he becomes a Red Lantern.
Just like the big thing in Return of the Jedi.
And he, and he has a monologue, an inner monologue, where he says, like, after the second volume when they cure themselves of the disease that was killing them, he says, the universe still needs us. And it's like, in a way, is while we shouldn't kill people, the Red Lanterns have a place because every emotion has a place.
Yeah.
So every lantern should have a place.
I feel like that.
Yeah. So anyway, that's been modern mythology on the Red Lanterns, mostly, and Atrocitus.
Mostly.
But I wanted to do DC stuff because I feel like we haven't done or you and I haven't really gone into. And I want to do, to me, you know what I think of? It's like, when you know you have a good character is when you have something like Green Lantern, where I think of like Batman and Spider-Man, when there's so much lore inside the Lantern stuff, inside the grander DC universe, that's so cool. And it's when it's explored like that, and like you can have a story that's completely on the other side of the universe, it's such a cool thing.
I can't wait for you to read Batman Dark Age.
I'm never reading that shit. Don't you ever recommend shit to me ever again.
Don't you ever recommend shit to me ever again.
So yeah, we'll see you around next time. Modern mythology, we don't know what we're going to do, but we're going to be talking about some stuff.
It'll be a little bit. Yeah. The problem with modern mythology... we
don't really have a schedule for it.
There's that, but also there's not a lot of things that like that one of us likes and the other one is like never heard of.
Yeah, but I definitely feel like there are some things like what I want to do with this show is at some point
if we both like something enough, chances are the other one likes it.
And it doesn't have to be. I want to eventually adapt it to where it isn't just you and me, where it is me and someone or you or someone where we're like you're having a
like your wife coming in and talking to us about Harry Potter.
It doesn't have to be you and me. It could be you and your brother. It could be anybody. And the idea is like, again, I want to share stories and I want to talk about these things that, I don't know if this is going to make Tyler go out and buy and read some Red Lantern comics, but I think it's some interesting shit that I think.
Hell no.
Like. All right. Well,
I don't like them DC books.
One of these days, I'm going to get, like, real, like, fucking in the weeds about one particular thing in Fallout. And you're going to be like, why are we spending so much time on the bottle caps? Like, what are we doing here?
Bottle caps?
That's the currency in the game.
What game?
Fallout.
Oh,